The night he decided to rise again. Have you ever looked at your reflection and felt like a stranger? The eyes staring back were yours, but the person inside felt foreign, broken, defeated. Everything you thought you had, everything you believed in, slipping quietly through your fingers. This is the story of a man who lost it all and found something far greater than he ever imagined. His name was Arjun Mehta. At 29, he seemed to have the perfect life, a stable job, a loving fiancé, a future mapped out like a neat blueprint. Every morning he would wake with a sense of purpose. Every night he would sleep with a quiet confidence that the next day would bring progress, growth, and comfort. But life has a way of dismantling our sense of security when we least expect it. It started with a mistake at work, a miscalculation, a small oversight that snowballed into a disaster. The deal he had nurtured for months fell apart. Millions were lost, and in a single meeting, he went from being the promising young professional to a cautionary tale. He was fired. The calls stopped. The messages disappeared. Friends he had counted on vanished as if they had never existed. His fiancée, overwhelmed by the sudden chaos and insecurity, left him with a single text. "I need someone more stable." Within days, Arjun found himself alone in a small, rented room, a thin mattress on the floor, an old battered laptop. The walls that once held warmth now felt like cold reminders of his failure. And in the quiet, the whisper of his own mind became deafening. "You're a failure. You're nothing." Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Arjun applied for hundreds of jobs, not a single reply. He watched former colleagues move on, celebrate promotions, buy new homes, start families. And he sat on his mattress, staring at the ceiling, wondering why life had singled him out for such cruelty. He tried distractions, movies, books, walks through the city streets, but every step reminded him of what he had lost. Every night, sleep was a fleeting guest, chased away by the persistent thought, "Why me?" And then came one night, the night that almost broke him completely. The rain fell in sheets, drumming against the window pane with relentless force. The kind of rain that makes you feel smaller, insignificant, swallowed by the world. He held an eviction notice in his hand, the final warning from the landlord. His small room would no longer be his sanctuary. It would be gone, leaving him with nothing. He laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of his life had reached its peak. Pain had become familiar, almost comforting. He slipped on his worn shoes and stepped outside into the storm. The streets were empty. The city was asleep. Streetlights flickered intermittently, casting long shadows across puddles. And in the silence, he whispered, "I don't want to live like this anymore." It was not a plea for help. It was a decision, a quiet, trembling acknowledgement that something had to change, starting with him. That night, he walked aimlessly, feeling the rain soak through his clothes, feeling the cold creep into his bones. He thought about his life, every failure, every rejection, every lost opportunity. And for the first time in months, he allowed himself to imagine a life where he rose again. The next morning, he sat at the edge of his bed with a notebook and a pen. 3 words came to him, simple but profound: build from nothing. He didn't know where to start, but he knew he had to start somewhere. He stopped seeking validation from others and began seeking growth for himself. He watched free lectures online, read every book he could borrow, learned about marketing, psychology, human behavior. Every bit of knowledge was fuel, every lesson a stepping stone. He made mistakes, many mistakes. Clients were lost, projects failed, but each failure was a note, each setback a lesson. He realized the harsh truth. The world owes you nothing, but you owe yourself effort, persistence, and courage. Arjun began freelancing, taking small projects that barely paid the bills. But he did them with care, precision, and a quiet fire. He stayed up late into the night, learning new skills, applying old lessons, refining his approach. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, things began to shift. 6 months later, Arjun's hard work bore fruit. From that same broken laptop, he built his own marketing agency. Not $1 million empire yet, but momentum, the kind that grows quietly until it can't be ignored. And with that momentum came confidence. Not arrogance, not the boastful confidence of someone who has never known failure, but the steady, unshakable confidence of a person who has survived his own worst self. A year later, Arjun stood on a stage in front of hundreds of young entrepreneurs. The spotlight shone on him, but he didn't see the lights. He saw the faces of people who, like him, had been broken, lost, or doubted themselves. And he spoke from that place of raw honesty. Rock bottom isn't the end. It's solid ground. Ground you can build on when everything falls apart. If you are here tonight, it means you faced your storms and you can rise. The applause was deafening, not because of his success, but because of his survival, his resilience. The city that once broke him now carried his name in advertisements, in articles, in conversations. But Arjun never forgot that night. The rain, the darkness, the whisper that sparked everything. He knew that life could strip away all comfort in an instant, but it could never take away the choice to rise, to fight, to rebuild. And that is the truth he wanted everyone to know. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. Life may burn your plans, destroy your illusions, and leave you staring at nothing. But from that nothing, you can build everything. It starts with a decision, a quiet, firm declaration that enough is enough, that you will not surrender. Arjun often thought back to the moment under the streetlight, soaked in rain, feeling utterly defeated. He realized that night was not the end. It was the beginning, the point at which he stopped being a victim of circumstance and became a master of his own destiny. He continued to work, continued to learn, continued to fail, and continued to rise. Each project he took, each client he helped, each skill he mastered became another brick in the foundation of the life he wanted. And through it all, he kept the lesson alive in his heart. Resilience is not built in comfort, but in adversity. Arjun's story is not about overnight success or miraculous breakthroughs. It's about the slow, relentless accumulation of effort. It's about facing the storm and deciding to move forward anyway. It's about standing up after every fall, saying to yourself, I am not done. The night he decided to rise again was not a single moment of triumph. It was a decision repeated every day, a commitment to show up even when the world has abandoned you, a commitment to fight, to grow, and to rebuild from nothing. And that is why his story resonates, because it could be anyone's story, anyone who has felt lost, abandoned, broken, or defeated, anyone who has stared into the mirror and not recognized themselves. Arjun's message is simple. The world may break you, but it cannot stop you from building your own life. The darkness may feel endless, but it always precedes the dawn. You don't need permission to rise. You only need the courage to start, the discipline to continue, and the faith to believe that your efforts will one day bloom. Every day is a chance to rise. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow. Every failure is a lesson in disguise, and every storm is the making of a stronger, wiser, braver self. Arjun knows now that success is not the absence of struggle. It is the triumph over struggle. It is the decision, moment after moment, to stand up when others would sit down, to keep moving when others would stop, to build from nothing, because that is the only place where true strength is forged. He keeps a journal filled with reminders of the nights he felt hopeless, of the mornings he rose anyway. And in those pages, he writes messages not just for himself, but for anyone who will read them one day. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. Keep going. Start today. Build from nothing and rise. Arjun Mehta is no longer the man who sat alone, broken in a rented room. He is the man who understands that life's greatest gifts are often wrapped in struggle, that the moments that hurt the most are the ones that teach the most, that the night you feel the most lost is the night you begin to find yourself. This is not just his story, it is a blueprint, a reminder, a call to action. Not the kind shouted from a stage, but the kind whispered to your heart when no one is watching. When you feel like giving up, remember Arjun. Remember the rain, remember the streetlight, remember the quiet, trembling decision that changed everything. You can rise, you can rebuild. You can become the person you were always meant to be. Because sometimes the strongest stories start in the darkest nights. Because sometimes all it takes is the decision to rise again. Because nothing, not failure, not loss, not rejection, can stop a determined heart. Build from nothing, rise from everything, and become unstoppable. If you like this video, please do let me know in comment section, and don't forget to subscribe our channel.